and I'll post it later if anybody else wants to watch it. But anyway, so what I thought I would do originally, I wasn't going to hold a Zoom meeting. I had it scheduled in the syllabus, but then I thought, I really didn't see the need. That the two big pieces of this class that I really feel like I should do a special Zoom session on were the individual presentation, and then of course the business writing, which I'm finding myself as I'm grading this week, directing at least a few people so far to make sure you watch that video, because it's obvious in their writing assignment that they didn't watch it because they didn't put anything into practice that I had suggested in there. So, but then I started thinking, what else could I do the presentation on or a Zoom session on? And I realized, because I just taught this on Monday night in my BUS24 class, we went over the same exact topic, and I think the assignment is exactly the same. And so I thought, it could be valuable to go over this this persuasive message, because really persuasion is everywhere in the business world. You're either trying to persuade your boss to do something, or you're trying to persuade or influence your fellow worker to do something, or you're working in the marketing department and you're trying to build a message that persuades people to buy your product or use your service. So it's all around us, and being able to do it well could be very valuable in your career arsenal. And so I thought it's probably worth the time to talk about what's called the AIDA method, which is a method of persuasion that you can apply to either verbal communication or your written communication in a document. And so this particular week, we're doing writing assignments, and we're going to be doing a persuasive sales message. So it ties right into that particular assignment. And so I thought, well, let's spend a few minutes talking about that topic of the AIDA method, and let me give a little bit more clarity if there needs to be on each of those various aspects of that method or that strategy. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen here. I did open the PowerPoint for this, and I believe that's the one I want right there. So you guys are able to see my screen, yes?
No.
Okay. How about now?
I guess it's me. I can't see it.
Not seeing the PowerPoint? Okay, let me check.
No.
Let me try again. How about now?
I can't see it, but if it's the same one from the chapter, I can open it up from the module.
What are you seeing on your screen?
I just seen you.
Oh, how about you, Bobby? What are you seeing?
I see it. Unit 3, workplace communication.
Hey, Rebecca, go to your settings and see what you're set for. Like, are you speaker mode, or are you?
Yeah, I am not super techie, so
Okay.
I don't even know where my settings are.
It should be the top of, if you see my picture.
Oh, I see where it says view. Okay.
See if that
No.
helps.
Oh, I see it now.
Okay.
I see it.
Might have just
Thank
been the view that you were under, so no worries. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about persuasive and sales message. And this message that you're going to be doing, I believe if it's the same one that the other classes do, and I'll look at it in a minute, is you're going to be, really it's a sales message. So either way, whether you're trying to persuade somebody to do something, to start a diet, to go start exercising, to eat right, to floss their teeth, or whatever it might be, or whether you're trying to sell something, you want to kind of use a persuasive approach to doing that. And I don't know how much you guys remember from last week, because I think I had you do both routine and negative messages, but in the negative message, you use what's called the indirect strategy. And the indirect strategy was, basically that you don't come right off or right out the gate in your message with what you want somebody to do. You actually build up to the news, and usually it's negative news, but in the case of persuasion, you're building up to what you want them to do. And it's both persuasive message and negative messages are predominantly going to be written with the indirect strategy. So again, the direct strategy is I'm going to tell you right away what I want, and then I'm going to give you the reasons, and then I'm going to close my message. Where the indirect strategy is I'm going to use a buffer or get your attention, then I'm going to give you all these reasons, and then I'm going to ask you what I want. So the ask or the main idea comes after all of the reasons. And the reason that you use the indirect strategy is a lot of times, especially in sales, people right away find out you want to sell them something and they don't want to listen anymore, right? So they turn off, and you've lost them. So if you start off your sales message with, I want to sell you something, they're going to say, never mind, I don't want to hear you. where if you catch their attention and begin to build their interest, and then you tell them what you want them to do, they might be a lot more apt to do it. So that's kind of the difference. So persuasive messages, not to say that they can't be direct. In most cases, they're indirect in their strategy, and very much like a negative message. And so that's what the AIDA method is. So obviously, in today's digital age, we have leaner corporate hierarchies. We have less managers above us and below us. In many cases, the structure of many businesses today is what we call flat, meaning that there's very few layers of leadership. But it depends, if you're in the military or certain organizations are very hierarchical, but more and more becoming much less hierarchical and more driving decision making and things down to the actual employees working with the customer. And because of that, that causes the organization to have a leaner hierarchy, and which means that you as an individual, regardless of where you are on that hierarchy, may have to use persuasive skills much more effectively. And then, of course, because of that, there's also a little bit of blurring of the lines of authority, because decision making has been pushed down to the employee versus, hierarchical decision making, which is all done at the top of an organization. What we call centralized. It's now decentralized, and decision making is in the hands of the frontline employees. And then there's more of a greater reliance on teams, which means you have to work with others, which means you have to persuade them. And then above all that, we have savvy, well-informed customers and consumers, and they're searching the internet. So, to be able to persuade people, they can search and research on their own. So you got to make sure you're credible and make sure that you're able to persuade them. And so this is why it's important. And obviously, when it comes to managing people, the goal is in these days is to influence rather than to command, or to coach rather than to dictate, and so that all those changes have required greater persuasive skills in the workplace. I'm not going to read the quote. You guys can look at it in your book. And I'm not going to go over Perlit's 5 components of persuasion, but I am going to talk about this screen right here. So effective persuasion techniques involve obviously establishing some credibility. Sometimes we're trying to persuade somebody, but if we're not, an expert, or we don't have expert opinion or whatever, it may be difficult to get them to be persuaded. So we need to be able to somehow establish some credibility that might be required. Also tying facts to benefits. So we don't want to just list facts when we persuade, but we want to let them know the benefit to them. If you remember, we talked a bit about the you-centered approach to business writing. And what that means is we should always keep the reader in mind whenever we write. It's not so much about what I want to say, it's about what they need to hear, what's going to benefit them. And then, of course, this is very important, expecting and overcoming resistance. Whenever we're trying to persuade somebody, we need to at least take one moment to think to ourselves, what might be their objection? What might be their resistance? Let me anticipate that a little bit and deal with that. And we'll talk about that with the desire piece of the AIDA method. And then make a reasonable specific request. So obviously, a lot of times persuasion doesn't work because we don't make a specific request. We instead are vague about what we want. And so we got to be careful that we don't cloud it or cloak it too much in language that doesn't make it clear what we want them to do. And then, of course, recognizing the power of loss. And that is, kind of instilling in the minds of the listener that we're trying to persuade that to not do this is a high cost. It's going to cost you something, and you're going to lose something as a result of not doing this. And so that being able to cloud it or to form it that way and to fashion it that way and present it that way really makes your message more believable and more accepted. In fact, it was interesting because in my class, I read a book to the class. It was called How to Become a Marketing Superstar. And I found it at a thrift store. It's little 1 to 2 page vignettes on marketing. And one of the chapters that I just read that same day that I was speaking about it was Always Sell the Consequences. That was the title of it. And the whole point is the power of loss. And it says here, I'll just read you a quick section. It says, customers would rather not lose something than save something. If offered the choice not lose $100 or to save it, the customer will choose the not lose option. This is an important marketing understanding. Always communicate the consequences to the customer of going without your product. The fear of loss is a much stronger buying motive than the potential to save. And so the whole point is, recognizing the power of loss. And they gave the example here, imagine you're a window manufacturer and you go to sell your windows and you say, you're going to save $2 a day and reduce energy. That doesn't sell very good. It's more effective to say you're losing $720 a year with your old single pane windows. So the difference is you've put it in terms of what they're going to lose, not just what they're going to save. So I thought that was interesting that I had read that the same day that I was talking about it. So I thought I'd share that with you. And then, of course, sharing solutions and compromising, when it comes to persuading is, we're trying to solve problems, and those problems can be solved by what I have to offer. And that becomes a valuable way of selling yourself or persuading people. And then this gets into, the different phases of using the 3x3 process, which you guys should have been looking at already in your book. Analyzing and anticipating and adapting, what do you want the receiver to do? I'm not going to go through all these because they're all very similar to what you've been doing in your other writing assignments. But then we get to what I really want to talk about, and that is the 4-part AIDA strategy. And AIDA is an acronym that stands for attention, interest, desire, and action or ask. And so it's really a model or a formula to follow when doing a persuasive message, that you would start the message off by really trying to get the attention of your reader. And I'll explain how to do that in a minute. Then building their interest. So you got my attention and it causes me to want to read more. And then I continue on with all of the benefits that whatever it is that you want me to do is going to bring to me. It's all the benefits, all the facts and benefits and etc. consequences. And then there's the D, which is desire. You want to instill a desire in me, and usually that comes as a result of removing any resistance I might have. And maybe I'm thinking to myself, gosh, this is probably really expensive, or maybe I'm thinking to myself, I don't have time for that. So if you can anticipate that and then give a solution to that, or give me maybe a testimonial of somebody, that sounds really good, but I'm not really sure. Well, a celebrity is using this product, or did you know that 10 out of 20 people that have used it have found this to be true. So some kind of testimonial or some kind of coupon, even, hey, we're going to give you half off just to give it a try. That removes my resistance, and that's the desire, and it creates a desire. Well, I think I want to have this. And then the last A is ask or action. And that's where you want to specifically tell the audience what you want them to do. And a lot of students, the biggest mistake they make on this is because they're trying to build interest, they kind of let the cat out of the bag and they tell them what they want them to do, and then they try and build their interest. But the whole goal is to not give away your main idea until you've already built their interest. So you have to write it in such a way as you're trying to get them to build interest. Like, this sounds really good. This sounds really good. This sounds good. What do you want me to do? That's the whole idea. Don't tell me what you want me to do and then try and build my interest. And I've been reading through a number of students that have already submitted this assignment in another class. And that's the primary problem I'm seeing is they're telling me what they want me to do before the building or during the building my interest stage. And it's a little tricky because that's the temptation. And if you word it the right way, though, you don't have to tell them what you want them to do yet. You can paint the picture of what they can experience and then tell them at the end how they can experience that. So, but that's the AID strategy. So we'll look at that again. Again, attention, interest, desire, action. There's the method. And by the way, you'll find this in every single business communications book, any kind of persuasive speech class. They'll talk about this method. It's pretty much a standard acronym. So again, A is the gaining attention. So summarize the problem, make an unexpected statement, focus on reader benefits. I like it when students use questions like, have you ever wanted to, or have you ever thought about, or, well, how would you like to, or by the time you're done with this article, you're going to be an expert at this, stuff like that. You're making some kind of an unexpected, startling statement, important question, probing question, but you're not giving away yet what you're going to be talking about. You're just trying to grab their attention. And so you're trying to find some way of doing that will make them want to continue reading. And if you notice, a lot of good sales messages do that. And that's what they do. They grab your attention by making a startling claim or a statement or a quote, or, if it's a real medical thing, they'll say, did you know that 9 out of 10 doctors recommend that you do this, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that, and now you're drawn in. So that's the first A. I'll be looking for that on your writing assignment, that you've grabbed my attention, and do a good job of it. Don't, a lot of students, again, they'll say, I'm writing this email to you today because I want to let you know about a great product. Well, boring, doesn't grab my attention, do something that really hooks me in. That's the goal of the AIDA method and persuasive messages. And then also you want to use, you can use a compliment. It says you can give related facts. You can ask a stimulating question. That's my favorite one. So that's how you do AID, gaining attention. Then it moves to interest. So now you want to build my interest. So you want to provide some interesting facts, some figures, some expert opinions. You want to give some examples. I think the interest piece is really good if you can come up with some good arguments for why this is a good idea. So if you're trying to sell something, use your best argument first, and put that out there, but put it in terms of benefits to the reader as best you can. And you can use facts and figures, but tie those facts and figures to benefits to the reader. But again, so if I was writing this paper, I would put an AIDA down the margin of my paper, and I would do the first A. I'd do something that grabs their attention. Of course, after I've understood what I want to talk about, then I would outline my I section. I would build some get 3 or 4 good solid arguments for why this is something you should want to do or people should want to do, and put them in order of the most critical and most powerful first, and then list the other 3 in subsequent order from the most strongest argument to the least strongest argument. Your argument should be logical and emotional. So in other words, you can have 1 or 2 logical reasons and even emotional ones, like, did you know that you could be supporting local farmers? Did you know that, don't you want to spend more quality years with your grandchildren? Things like that, like, oh, that's tugging on my heartstrings. So that would be an emotional appeal. A more logical one would be things like quoting stats or saving money, things like that, and showing how that's true. So you're building my interest. So you got my attention. You're building my interest with all of the information. This is kind of the more informational section of your document. Again, be specific, show direct benefits, and you could even list the benefits. And again, if you didn't watch my video on business writing, I believe both of you did, but bullet lists, headings, all that stuff in your document, make it look really beautiful and appealing to the eye. And I said this to my class on Monday night, and I'll say it to you guys and anyone who listens to this video is, you have an opportunity to let your brand be known when it comes to business writing. And I think one of my goals would be in this class is to see a handful of you, if not all of you, really develop your brand of writing and your style. And you do a document, you write a cover letter, you do an email or whatever, and it just looks like everybody else's, and that's the status quo, and you've met the status quo, and you've done a decent job, and you did short paragraphs, you did some white space, you made it well written and all that. Great, beautiful. But what if you did a little bit more in those elements of design? What if you did some headings in bold and some bullet lists and certain things in italics and to stand out, and really made it look appealing? And it stands out, so somebody looks at the everyday status quo email, but then they look at yours, they go, wow, that's cool. That's impressive in the sense of how it's laid out, and it's easily scannable with my eye. I don't have to read everything in it. I can scan it and get the gist of it. And so that's when you become a writer in business world that stands out. And that's what I would strive for if I were, in your guys' shoes, on your way with your careers, is to really brand yourself and use your business writing to do so by utilizing some of those design elements. Because you might say, well, I don't see everybody using them. Yeah, that's my point. So anyway, that's I. Then the D part of the AID is to reduce resistance. So ways you can do that is you can, again, anticipate arguments or objections like, this, I don't have time for this, or this seems very expensive, or are you sure, I'm not really sure about this, And that's where you can overcome that resistance in various ways. You can answer it, you can give testimonials, you can give discounts, whatever it's going to take. So offer counter arguments, anticipate objections, use the what if scenarios. And you might be asking, what if I did this, or whatever. Demonstrate competence, show the value of the proposal. I think the main thing here is just put yourself for a minute while you're reading your document in the shoes of the reader and think to yourself, what are they going to do? What could they say that would be an objection? What could they be thinking right now in trying to not say yes, right? And if you put yourself in those shoes and you answer that question, you're going to nail the D, the illicit desire. And then the last one is the prompt action, which is, make your request clear, specific, confident, make it easy too. So another thing that students often do is they'll say, well, I look forward to hearing from you soon. Great. You'll probably never hear from me. So make it extremely easy. Sign up today. Here's how. Here's a web link. Here's our website. Here's a phone number. Call now. That's the way you get action, right? You make it as easy as you can for the person. And you've all been there. We've all been there. You're looking at something. Oh, that sounds really great. Well, where do I go? Do I have to go to their web? I don't see their websites. Nowhere on here. I don't really know where to go. If you make it easy, they're going to follow up. If you make it hard, you're going to remove all their desire to do so. So make it easy. And that's the whole point of the ask or action. What action? Tell me specifically what action you want me to take and make it easy for me to take it. And you've won them. So you can also offer an incentive or a gift if you sign up now. In the next 24 hours, you get a free this or that. Don't provide excuses, repeat main benefits. So those are some things you can do. But the main thing is that you're driving me to action of some sort. All right. Let's just say I can't see it. Being a ethical persuader. So obviously, so I say all that, you might go, oh, wow, I could really, I can really upsell people. I could really, I could really use some fake facts and things like that. But of course, we know we live in the era of fake news. As I mentioned earlier, people are very tech savvy, so they have the ability to look things up for themselves and find out whether they're true or not. And so we need to obviously be credible. And so as it mentions there, stick to facts, don't exaggerate, don't manipulate, don't mislead, don't omit crucial information, don't provide deceptive emphases and stuff like that. But what's funny is you'll see this in advertising. So the other night when we were doing this in our class, I broke the students into groups and I gave them a product. I gave them one of the products right here. I gave them this, if you guys can see it, I don't know if you can, because it's some sunscreen. And then I also gave another group some hair gel. And then one of the groups I gave was a little tuna packet that had crackers in it. I think they're like a little packet that has crackers in a little spoon, and you can scoop the tuna on little thing of tuna onto the crackers and eat it. And it's like a little snack. Anyway, it says right on there, a great source of protein, right? And so we looked at it. Guess how many grams of protein it had? 1. 1 gram of protein. But right on the front, it says a great source of protein. The reality was that they provided in some ways, a deceptive emphasis, in my opinion, because, it really didn't have much protein. Someone might eat that and go, man, I really need a lot of protein in my diet. And they eat it and it's 1 protein. They might be able to get a lot more protein out of something else, for the same amount of weight. But anyway, so that's important to do. Build your credibility. Let's see if there's anything else I want to talk about. So using the AID, so it gets into the AIDA strategy when you're like making requests or complaints. Again, you can do it, and if you follow the AID format, get their attention. You could even use a compliment to get their attention. Then you can build their interest in what you're going to ask, and so it's kind of like using the negative message method, but using it is an indirect strategy. So using the indirect strategy, like you were with the negative message, building up to what you're asking for. But the whole purpose of that is most people, when you ask them to do something, their answer is always no. So you don't get past the first question. That's why you need to instill that desire and interest in them and then ask them afterwards. And that's the idea of the AIDA strategy. So anyway, you can read through those. I'm not going to cover all that. Those are just different ways that you can do it. And then it gets, so here's an example. I wanted to show you this. If you guys can see my screen still, does it say before ineffective request? Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yes.
Okay. So dear Dr. Thomas, because you know Atlanta and live here in our town, we thought about asking you to sponsor speak at our GSU Business Awards banquet. So right away they asked what they wanted, right, on this particular document. A few students on campus have read and admired your book, and so it starts to get into all the reasons. And then the last paragraph, I know you're a very busy person. We hope that you will agree to this invitation. Thank you in advance. Please notify our advisor, Alexa. So they didn't give them any way to get a hold of Alexa, at least not in the email body, etc. So it's limited in its approach, but let's see the better version. So this one says, your book Beyond Race and Gender stimulated provocative discussion across the nation on your campus when it first appeared last spring. Oh, wow, that got my attention. That's nice to know. Business students at Georgia State University now consider your nation the nation's diversity management guru. And for that reason, they've asked me with all my powers of persuasion in this invitation, because we admire your work, we'd like you to be our keynote speaker at the GSU Awards. As a student at urban campus and metropolitan area, we are keenly aware of diversity in issues. America no longer melts pot of ethnic groups, now American Mongolian stew. We'd like to hear more about the future workforce and how managers can maximize the contribution of all employees. Although we can't offer you an honorarium, we can promise you a fine dinner at GSU's faculty. So that they've overcome any, oh, great, I can't get an honorarium, but I'm going to get a dinner out of the deal. That's cool. We appreciate your an eager, GSU faculty club and an eager and appreciative audience of over 100 students and faculty. Speakers in the past have included Reverend James Jones and Mayor Rebecca Timmons. So, is that the end of it? Sorry. Oh, so that one, what is that? I'm sorry. Oh, these are just, so I apologize. This is, that's an improved request, ineffective request. That's an improved request. And then, oh, this is the second page. I thought there had to be more to it. Dr. Thomas, the evening includes a social hour at 6 and 7, your remarks. Sorry, I can't see the back of that. Until 8:30 and 9 p.m. So you won't have to worry about transportation or parking. We will arrange a limousine for your pickup. Please make most of the memorable banquet yet. Just call our advisor and notice they have the date of when they need to know by and the phone number. So this is a perfect example of that. Probably if I was to critique this, if a student turned this in, I'd probably say, yeah, I would probably not put the request in here yet. I probably would have saved this last sentence till maybe after the third paragraph or something like that, just because there's more reasons why he might be impressed by what is said in the third paragraph. But anyway, I mean, the positives here is it got my attention at the beginning. It built my interest throughout the course of it. It anticipated my objection on the second page, or actually on the first page, when it said, although we can't offer you an honorarium, we can offer you a nice dinner and over 100 students, and the Reverend James Jones and the Mayor Rebecca were both here before. Oh, wow. That sounds appealing, right? So I might have been resistant, but now that you've mentioned that, all right, I'm on board. And then if you continue on, they gave the specifics of the event, and they made it easy by providing transportation, and they made it very easy to get a hold of who they needed to get a hold of by providing the phone number. And they even gave a date that they would need the response by. So this is got all the pieces that you need to do a persuasive message. So I thought I would show you that. And then it gets into interpersonal persuasion at work and all that, persuading downward, persuading upward is the other one, focusing on your boss. How do you do that? They don't get into it as much in this book. Anyway, I think that's all I wanted to share. So if you'd like, I'll go over to your assignment here, and I'm going to pull it up. Let's see if this works. So let's go to modules for this week and scroll down to module week 10. So this is, can you guys see my screen, by the way? I just want to make sure.
Yes. Okay.
So we have the business writing Zoom session right there, and I'm just going to keep moving that down every week for students to watch. And then here's the Zoom session, which, oh, that's where I made the mistake. I need to fix that. I apologize. That should not be, that was supposed to be today at noon. And it was a Wednesday. Oh, well, I sent an email to everybody, so hopefully they got it. Did you guys use that link or did you use the one I emailed you?
Announcements you sent.
Yeah, me too.
The email? Yeah.
No, I used the one in the announcements, a section on.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. That's what the announcements. But when I do an announcement, I'm told, and I always believed it emails you.
Huh. Yeah, no, I got the email announcement, but I didn't go through Outlook to get to here to the Zoom meeting. I went to the announcements on the campus.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure, 95% sure that it emails you when I make an announcement. It sends it out to you when I do it. But anyway, okay, let's see. So back to this. So modules for this week. So, okay. So PowerPoint 10, which we just covered a few slides on. There's a quiz on 10. Then there's the discussion post, you guys know, which is basically, I kind of cover it in the business writing Zoom session, but hopefully you've been refining your list of do's and don'ts. And then here's your writing assignment that I want to focus on. So this one, so it's a letter, so you need to format it like a letter. I probably should have showed you that. I'll look at that in a second here in the book. I'll go over that, but it's going to be the AIDA method to give 3 arguments, 2 rational, 1 logical, and 1 emotional, and make your appeal, direct appeal. In other words, tell me what you want me to do, and I give you a lot of little tips in here what to do. And then if you come down here, this is going to be the scenario is so make sure your letter follows the proper formatting. It's in Appendix A in the back of your book, Figure A2. 50% of your grade is dependent on whether your document looks properly and is formatted like a letter. So key takeaways are.
Professor, I don't know what you're talking about. The assignment that's up looks like the one we just submitted. It's on the Kirsten Dunn email. That's what I'm seeing. And it's a.
No, that's not what I'm
Hi,
seeing.
Joshua, your email is well written.
Oh no, I don't know what you're seeing. You're seeing my screen. So hold on. Let me try again. What happened was that's where I started and then I navigated away from that. And so you guys didn't come with me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now we're here. Writing assignment number 3. Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. So so you're gonna be writing a letter right here. And again, gets my attention, appeals my interest, creates desire, and anticipates at least 1 objection, which is the desire, and then gives me a clear direction of what I can take. And then to use the indirect approach, so AIDA, which again is an indirect approach in itself. So if you just follow the AIDA strictly, you're doing the indirect strategy. 3 arguments should be given, at least 2 rational or logical and 1 emotional, and then anticipate and address at least 1 objection, and then make a direct appeal at the end of that. So tell me exactly what you want me to do, make it very clear, and then close with clear, easy instructions on how I can do what you're requesting. And so, keep in mind you can read through the persuasive messages. And then there's some other things I added there, but here's the very important right here in the middle. Make sure your letter follows proper formatting rules for a letter as shown in Appendix A. I'll go over that in a second. At the back of your book, Figure A12, and then 50% of your grade is dependent on whether your document looks and is formatted properly like a letter. Again, deliver persuasive messages involves using the AIDA method, giving solid and compelling arguments, both logical and emotional, and anticipating and answering obvious objections. So here's the scenario. You're going to be, basically, you're going to try to get me to subscribe to Organic Greens. Organic Greens is a subscription delivery service to bring you fresh produce and vegetables on a weekly basis or whatever. So it's all local farmers that are doing it. It's all healthy foods, organic, that are not using pesticides on them. And the boxes are delivered every week to your front door, kind of a thing. So your goal is to persuade me to sign up for this service. And you're actually addressing the letter from Martini. It says right here, sales message for the signature of Martha Sabatini. And that's her address and etc. So you can send it to me. You're persuading me. So send it to Eric Doucette, Norco College or whatever, and then send it from her. So you're writing on her behalf and you're trying to get me to subscribe to Organic Greens. So get my attention, build my interest, anticipate any resistance and overcome that resistance, and then tell me what you want me to do and make it easy for me to do. And all the facts and information about this service are in the paragraph. Of course, it gives you the details, about organic foods, and gives you details about who's making this food that you're delivering and how often the boxes will be delivered, etc. So that's your assignment, and you're going to use the AIDA method to do it. Any questions on that?
Nope, not for me either. I had to unmute, sorry.
Okay, no worries. All right, let me see. I'm going to try one more time to see if I can launch the book here, but for some reason it wasn't launching for me. There we go. It is this time. Or is it? I don't know why it's not loading. It might be my internet. Huh. All right. I have some other samples I can show you of a letter. I just wanted to show you all the margins and everything, but let me just share my screen in a minute here. Let me go to a file that I have a bunch of documents in. So let's see, letters and memos here. So I have some examples of good and bad letters and good and bad memos. So let me look at a few of these with you guys. Let me open one. I'll do letter sample without letterhead. So let me do this first. All right, this is actually maybe, I don't know if this is I don't think I give you guys homework assignments, but if I did, this would be one of them. Let me share my screen again. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm just going to share it over just to make sure. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a typical letter without a letterhead formatting. And this would be an assignment I give a student. I'll ask them, what is this first address block? What is that, etc. So just going through this sample letter is the left arrow here. I don't know why I have a left arrow there. Anyway, that right arrow here, that one I'm circling, that's not, I don't know what that one's for. The top one is top margin, right? So in a letter, your margin should be 1 inch all the way around, unless you have a letterhead. Now you could bring the top margin to the bottom of your letterhead, because if you had a 1 inch margin and then your letterhead, you're eating up your whole page, when letterhead is really something that's meant to be kind of in the margin. So if you have no margin, however, in this case, there's no you have no letterhead in this case, then there is no letterhead, then you would do a 1 inch margin from the top to what's considered the first address block, which is, anybody know what it is?
Your address.
Yeah, the return address. It would be the return address of the person sending the letter. So in this case, it would be Santrini or Santorini in your assignment, because she's the one that's sending the letter. The arrow here that's pointing to the left, that is the left margin, and that also should be 1 inch on a letter. That's why when you do your writing assignments, I want you to, when it's a memo or a letter, you should put it on its own page, so that way you can demonstrate your use of margins, versus putting like, my name and my class number and term and then the letter all on the same page. No, then you're not showing me the margin. So do that on a cover page or do it at the end or something. But anyway, so there's your margins. The first address block is your return address block. Then the next thing, of course, is the date. Now, the date doesn't have to be spaced from the first address block. It can actually be butted up against the bottom. That's also acceptable. I personally like the address on its own, or the date on its own. But you can do either or. You don't need a space between the return address and the date, but you do need a space between the date and the next address block. And what address block is that? I'm sure you're going to tell me, Rebecca. What is it?
The recipient.
The recipient, yeah, or what we call inside address. So it's the person that's getting the letter that works within the company. So yeah, so inside address, recipient's address, and then you have the first line, which is the salutation. And so salutation should end in a colon, not a comma, which is the default for most of us. Then I think this must just be pointing to the right margin, this one arrow on the right. I don't remember now. And then it gets into the letter, etc. And then at the bottom of the letter, you're going to have what's known as the closing greeting. That's what I call it. I don't know if there's actually an official term. Do you know, Rebecca? Is there a term for that?
I think so, but I don't know it offhand.
Yeah, I call it the closing greeting, but you should always do some kind of closing greeting, sincerely, or thank you for your time, or whatever, followed by comma, and then you have a space between that and the typed name. What's that space for?
Signature.
Signature on a letter, definitely. You need to leave enough space for a signature, whether you have one or not, doesn't matter, just leave the space for it. Then you have the what I call the signature block, which is the name and title of the person who wrote the letter. Then you have enclosure, which stands for the fact that you have some enclosure, some other documents with this letter. And then you have PA, which in this case would be the initials of the author of the letter or the typist of the letter, right? It's usually the typist is what I've been told, but I sometimes I use all four initials, which the first two initials are the person who sent the letter, and then the last two initials are the person who actually typed the letter. So anyway, the initials, you don't need the last two things on a letter unless those are true. So in other words, if nobody else typed it but you, or nobody else had anything to do with the letter but you, then don't put any initials. But if there was somebody else involved, then put their initials. And if you don't have any enclosures, don't put enclosure, because then it's going to be misleading, right? But if you do have enclosures, like on your cover letter, then you'd want to put enclosure because you have a resume that goes along with it. So that's how you format a letter without a letterhead. Let me show you the one with a letterhead, just because it would be good. All right, sorry, I got to share my screen again. All right, let me know that you guys can see that.
Yes.
Okay, so here you have a letterhead. And I think this letterhead, in my opinion, is it's even though this particular person who created this one kept it within the, outside the 1 inch margin, I've seen much letterhead that sits up within that margin. I usually will go at least 1.5 inches from the top of the page to the bottom of the letterhead, depending on how large the letterhead is. But you have a little bit of playroom there, but make sure you still are using margins that are equal. You have a date column. And in this case, you have no return or no return or sender's address because the letterhead acts as that. And if the letterhead doesn't have an address, then you might want to add the inside or the sender's address, but it should have an address on it, in my opinion. If it's a true letterhead, it'll have your return address. Sometimes they put it at the bottom, which is also acceptable. They'll put the logo at the top for letterhead, but then they'll put the address at the very bottom as kind of part of the footer. And that's fine too, as long as you have the address on there somewhere of the sender. Then you have the date, then you have the inside address, then you have the salutation, and everything else is the same from here. But that's how you format a letter. It's got to be one of those two. Now notice between, I'll say this really quick, a memo and a letter. A memo, of course, has that title block to it that has the date to from subject on it. A letter doesn't need to have a subject line. It doesn't need a to or from line or any of that kind of stuff. But however, a memo doesn't have a signature block at all. It just has the initials of the author / sender, whereas a letter always has a signature block, but not a complete or full signature block, only the name and title of the sender. If it was an email, however, you would have a full signature block, which would include not only their name and title, sometimes the company name, and definitely a phone number with extension and email address. Most email programs like Outlook and iMail and all them will allow you to create your own signature block that gets added to all of your emails automatically. And in that signature block, technically should have your phone number and extension and all that. And I think it's really good when it comes to letters, because what if they get a letter and they're confused about something, or what if they want to ask a question, they don't want to have to send another letter back, so they want to be able to just call you, right? And so you make it easy for them to get a hold of you. And that's professional, and that builds good relations with your clients and customers. And by the way, you probably already remember that letters are sent to predominantly external audiences, whereas memos and emails are more for internal audiences. So, all right, so let's look at a couple of good and bad letters here. So here's a letter. This was supposed to be a letter. Let me share my screen. You can tell me what's wrong with it. So here's your assignment, in fact. What's wrong with this letter?
Well, first off, it looks like an email. And
Right.
It's too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we have a lot of problems with this one, but yeah, it's basically not formatted like a letter, it's formatted like an email. It actually even has an email signature block at the end. And of course, it has these long, intimidating paragraphs to it. There's no elements of design for readability, except they did do an italicized word here. And they do have the, the bold why pitaya, pink pitaya. No, this isn't the same one you're doing. So good. And it does have note this offer will be available from May. So they did, overcome or give me a deadline so that I could respond quickly. But the way it looks is horrible. Long paragraphs. Remember, business writing is short single-spaced paragraphs. separated by white space. You know, the use of many design elements such as bold, italics, underlines, all caps if you need to, bullet lists, headings, all that make it scannable and readable. And this one is an intimidating document to read. So yeah, that was a student's submittal on that assignment. So let me see if I can open another one here. I give you another example of bad. Here's a letter bad. Let's see, letter bad 3. Let's see what this one looks like. Okay, so that was a letter. What's wrong with that one? Can you guys see that, by the way? Did it change?
No, it didn't change.
Okay, so I have to go back. I don't know why this does that, but okay, how about, there you go.
Yes,
Okay, so there's another letter. So what's wrong with that one?
it's not formatted correctly at all. It doesn't look like a letter. It looks somewhat like an email, but even then it's, yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't have any address blocks, doesn't have return or inside address block, right? The Dear Doug Goodwin is on there twice, which is kind of strange, and it has a comma, not a colon, at the end of the salutation. Actually, the signature block's not bad, except for it doesn't have the space for a signature, and it should be single spaced. You know, the name and the title, and then of course the document itself is one long paragraph and then one short paragraph. The line spacing is off because between Dear Doug and the first paragraph, there's only one space, but after the first paragraph, between the first and second paragraph, there's 2 spaces. So yeah, and then of course this is all one paragraph, which, you know, I have to read the whole thing, and it's intimidating and not formatted very nice. So yeah, very good. All right, let me close that. Let me open another one. I'll do a couple more bad ones, and then I'll do one more bad one. Here's bad number 5. Let's see what this one looks like. Oh, all right, hold on. I got to share my screen, and you guys can tell me what you think of this one. So what's wrong with that one?
Well, the BCC, it's an email. I mean,
A lot of
that's-
emails now.
yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so they format it like an email, first off, but their signature block looks like a letter because they only have the name and the title and the company, but they don't have any other information. So they didn't format their signature block like an email.
And the comma on the salutation is wrong.
So again, the comma, and then what's wrong with the body of this?
It's just not formatted correctly. The spacing is all over the place.
It's double spaced like an essay. So it's not a business document in that sense. It's nice that they did do a bullet list. I actually do like that. And they had some heading there with position and hiring. So those that could be really nice had they made, you know, maybe made the headings bold and underlined or something, or maybe a little larger font, and then made their bullet list single spaced. But then the rest of the document, yeah, it looks more like an essay than it does a business document. So yeah. All right. Let's see if I have a good one to give you, just to give you an example of at least a better one. I don't know how good. I marked some of them good, and I'm not really sure how good they really are. So here's letter good 1. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it's all right. Okay, let me show you that. I think it could be better, but all right, you guys see that?
Yes.
So it has return address, has inside address, has the salutation correct, has the margins pretty decently. And actually the body looks fine. The problem is they just need more white space. So I would probably have liked this had they just put a space after the first bullet list between that and the next paragraph. And then even where it says concerning issues, I would probably put a space after that. And then I'd put a space at the end of the hiring process bullet list. And then I put another space at the end of the placement hired bullet list. And then of course, the signature block's not too bad, but I don't know that there was an enclosure, and I don't know what HA, she put her own initials, which is fine, I guess. But anyway, so not too bad. Just the line spacing was not too great. And there was some typos here with company, and then arised was spelt wrong. Anyway, what do you guys think?
I pretty much agree with what you said, that it's not enough white space.
Yeah, you need more. It just needs more white space. But I like the bullet lists, and you know about on your bullet list, they should be capitalized, and you should try and make them as parallel as you can. in the
Did
list.
you want us to try to create a letterhead on our letter, or does it not matter to you?
You can
Create
do
a voice?
whatever you want. If that's
Okay.
easier than doing the inside address, yeah, then do a letterhead. Yeah.
Okay.
Some students do. So let's see. Let me do one more letter good and see if this is any better. Oh, that one's nice. Let me show you that one. I do like that one. I have my signature on it. Maybe I did it. You know, sometimes I'll take a student's paper and I'll fix it and then I use it for myself to do that example.
I don't want to end up on your bad list, so yes, please show us.
We see this. This one I like. It looks really nice. So. And they used a letterhead. So yeah, I think the right margin's a little large, but it might just be where it rolled over. So, but that one looks nice. You know, I mean, it could be better. There's things I would do better. I would probably make my headings bold in the middle there, but I like the way it looks. It looks clean. It looks nice. It looks pretty scannable. I can go the middle here. My questions. I mean, I can just go right to the middle and go, dear Mr. Gooden, here are my questions. I know they're going to ask questions. So what is it? And I can look right there at the middle and see them. And so, yeah, I think that one looks, as far as how it looks nice and it's formatted beautifully. Like a letter.
I agree. I like that. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I think I showed you enough to whet your appetite on what we're looking for. So any further questions about the assignment or this method or any of that kind of stuff?
No, I think I'm good.